Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and earn money, all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's totally free with no catch. Ever since we discovered Spotify for Podcasters, we have had so much fun trying out all of the features like Q&As and polls that let us be really creative and engage with our audience. I highly recommend you give it a try. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started. This week on Podcast Royal, we chat about the royal family's Christmas, find out who the hardest working royal is of 2022, and mark our calendars for this year's Trooping the Color. Plus, we look back on our top 10 royal moments of 2022 and look ahead to 2023 in the royal family, all on episode 81 of Podcast Royal.
Welcome back to Podcast Royal and welcome to 2023 to all of our listeners and to you, Jessica. It's good. We've been catching up for a solid 20 minutes offline. So I know how your holiday season was, but I would love it if you would divulge to our listeners, especially new listeners. And if there are new listeners, welcome to the Podcast Royal Loyals, as I am calling it. And I'm Rachel, and this is Jessica.
Yeah, happy New Year to you again, Rachel, and happy New Year to our listeners. I had a great holiday season. I really took advantage of just stepping away and enjoying some time unplugged with family and friends. I traveled back to my hometown to see family and went to dinner with one of my best friends one evening and really just took a real break, and it was wonderful. I feel like especially in the past few months, we've had so much buzzing around in the news about the royal family and just everything else. And I don't know about our listeners, but I kind of just wanted to step away from it all. I mean,
Yeah.
I did check in and see some updates, but other than that, I wasn't following all of the news stories as closely as I normally do. And I hope our listeners took a break too. And so maybe we're all kind of coming back refreshed and ready to jump back in. But I had a wonderful, wonderful Christmas and New Year's. What about you, Rachel? How was yours?
It was really good. It was really low key, did not travel, which has kind of been the theme for the past few years. I hosted and it was really nice. It was really low key. I actually worked quite a bit. That is my New Year's resolution. So every year I pick a word. And my word for 2023 is balance because I'm so out of balance right now in my life. I am working way too much. I know it. And so I'm really going to be cognizant of that going into 2023. But I worked a lot. I did have, I say I had a few days off, but between both of my jobs, I have two jobs. I think actually I had one day off, and that was the 23rd. And I didn't no work that day. And this is not me complaining. I'm sorry. I did take off Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, although I normally work on the weekends, but I did not work that weekend. So that is my goal for myself for 2023 is to find a little bit more equilibrium. But overall, it was wonderful. It was very low key. I still have my Christmas tree up and my wreath and my decor, and I'm claiming I'm not Episcopalian, but I'm Methodist, but I'm claiming Epiphany, which is not until January 6th, and we're recording this on January 3rd. I just want a couple more days with my Christmas tree. I don't know, but it was a
Love it.
wonderful holiday season, and I'm just really excited for what is to come in 2023, not just on the show but just in life. And we're in January now. It is your birthday month. We are just a couple of weeks, about 3 weeks away from your birthday. We're just about a week out from the Princess of Wales 41st birthday. And the New York Times gave us both a gift. I don't think either of us will ever forget. We were named one of their 5 royal podcasts to listen to, and we ended up in both the digital edition and the print edition, the Sunday New York Times, no less, on January 1st, no less. So I told you this offline. I spoiled my own surprise, but I ran up to Barnes and Noble on Sunday and bought all of the copies they had, and I grabbed you one too. So the next time I see you, which will be soon, I'm going to give you your copy. I mean, how cool is that? That was so unexpected and just such a blessing. So what was your thought when I texted you? Were you just blown away as I was?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a fun surprise anytime, we're mentioned kindly by a writer out there, but especially for the New York Times. I mean, it's, pretty big publication. So I was surprised though when you told me it was print. I definitely didn't expect that. So definitely a fun gift for the new year.
Well, keeping a girl humble. So I go up to Barnes and Noble on Sunday. I walk in and I'm like, I need all of your copies of the New York Times. And I go, and I'm in there. My name's in there. And he goes, and the guy that was checking me out goes, cool. Like he could care less. So keep a girl humble. I love it. Keep humility is a blessing. So if any of you are new listeners, thanks to that incredible mention in the Times, welcome, welcome. And because I don't know the next time our names or our podcast will end up in the New York Times, please allow me to be self indulgent for one moment and read briefly from the piece that our podcast, quote unquote, feels like an escapist, glossy magazine in audio form. I think I've said that line to myself about 70 times in the last week. That's just so cool. And, as someone that works for a magazine, that's like, I mean, I think that's, I'm still stunned and just floored. So we're honored to be included. So thank you, thank you, thank you to the New York Times. So we're going to move into our first Royal Rundown of 2023. Our last episode dropped on December 14th. We were going to have an episode on the 28th, but you know what? We needed a break. I think we have worked really hard in 2022 and we just said, you know what, we'll do our top 10 lists on January 4th. So, of course, the biggest news since December 14th in our last episode was that the royal family celebrated Christmas. And it kicked off with Kate's second annual Carole concert at Westminster Abbey. So many of the royal women that evening were wearing burgundy. The concert was filmed on December 15th, which was coincidentally the same night that volume 2 of Harry and Meghan's Netflix docuseries dropped. So, do you think the burgundy color coordinating was on purpose as a show of unity amongst the family? What do you think?
I think it could have been. I actually love that color. It is one of my favorite. I think I may have mentioned this on this show before, but I'm not a really big bright red person. But that
Mhm.
burgundy color I just think is beautiful and it worked really well with the Christmas Carol concert. But yeah, I mean, I find it hard to believe it was a coincidence that so many of them were
There's
in that
no way
color.
it was. You
I
don't
mean, I
fall.
don't think so. I mean, definitely, might expect Charlotte and Catherine to coordinate, but Zara
Yeah.
too?
Well, yeah, and there were more than just that too. I mean, I think Pippa was in like I mean
Yeah.
there were a lot and like you I mean, I understand maybe if everyone just showed up in red and green, those are traditional Christmas colors, but the exact same shade of burgundy, that is not a coincidence. Like more than two people don't just show up in that color. And I think they of course everyone knew that Harry and Meghan volume 2 was coming out that same day and I think that I could totally see like all of these women, Pippa, Zara, Kate, not Charlotte probably, but on a group text being like, okay, let's show. I think you, if I'm not mistaken, Eugenie maybe. What, I don't know. I don't remember.
No,
There were a lot
I
of
don't
them.
think she was. But yeah, there were quite a few.
There was more than three, more than three, and
Didn't
so.
usually have that sort of like, was it like a plaid kind of blanket
Mhm,
coat look or something, if I remember
mhm.
correctly?
Yeah. So, we've been on vacation. So forgive us if we're a little bit rusty. And this was a couple of weeks ago, but I don't think it was a coincidence either. I think that it was absolutely intentional and I liked it. And, a burgundy, I'm actually randomly wearing burgundy right now. So, that was not planned, but, I'm just trying to fit in over here. But okay. So speaking of the docu-series, we're going to go much more in depth in the docu-series in later on. We've got listeners, we've got a lot of exciting future projects coming up and that have to do with Podcast Royal in 2023. We'll elaborate more on that later. But just we can't not mention the docuseries because we really haven't talked about it yet on the show. So speaking of the docuseries, Harry and Meghan on Netflix, what were your high level thoughts?
Yeah, so high level initial thoughts. I know I mentioned this previously on one of our other episodes, but my first takeaways were that there was a lot being said without a lot being said. I felt like nothing new was really shared initially. And then as the episodes came out, it kind of heated up a little bit where we saw them sort of framing William to look like the bad guy, which I felt was sort of a not a great move.
Mm-hmm.
And overall, I was really disappointed with the amount of finger pointing, but with not a lot of facts to back it up. Really vague details provided, if any, very little self reflection or acknowledgement that anything was done wrong on their side. And I really do think Americans who haven't followed the royals closely will find Harry and Meghan in this series to probably be relatable or likable. I mean, they're getting one side of the story. And I feel like, if you haven't been following the story closely or know, really what we've seen from both sides, there's a big piece missing there. And so just from listening to commentary from other Americans who have heard it, a lot of them I've really been surprised at and I guess I shouldn't be surprised. We've really been surprised at the lack of knowledge around the royal family, and hearing their reactions and really thinking that, I don't know, that taking everything that was said as the absolute truth, has been a
Mm-hmm.
little bit surprising to me. But, overall, and I said this before too, I think we're kind of at that point of overexposure with Sussex content right now. It just as a quick reminder, we've got Harry's book to look forward to, which drops next week on January 10th. And then even before that, he's doing a sit down interview with Anderson Cooper, which airs this Sunday, January 8th on CBS and I think Paramount Plus. So we're getting a lot of stuff, and it's just all about the same thing. And nothing really new is being shared. And so I'm not really sure what the overall strategy is there. But what were your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I just am sitting here thinking I just have so much to say. So, but I'm not going to say everything because we'll again expound on this. And honestly, I probably need to watch it again. But I think we said this in we touched on this because our episode came out on December 14th. So part one was volume one was out, but volume two was not yet out. And of volume one, I found it quite frankly to be very boring, and I think you did as well. Maybe it's just because we report on these people week to week, day to day, but there wasn't anything in volume one that was new at all to me. I mean, I guess that's not true. Of how I didn't realize they had met on Instagram before they met at the blind date at the Soho House. I mean, there were some things, but volume two was much more much more in your face. William definitely got the lion's share of the criticism. I thought Charles got off relatively easy. I've heard the same will be true about Spare. So, Spare, of course, refers to the heir in the spare. And so, really, I think from what little I've heard from people that have knowledge of the book and have read the book, it's really going to be a book about the sibling rivalry and relationship between he and William as as evidenced and referenced in the title Spare. So it's William is going to get, from what I've heard, again, once again, the lion's share of the criticism. Yet Harry said in the I can't remember if no, it was the ITV because trailers for both the Anderson Cooper interview and the Tom Bradby ITV interview are out, and it was the ITV interview where he said that he wants his brother back. And I'm like, well, if that's the case, then what are you doing? Because you're just so critical of him in this docu series and this apparently this book, which of course I haven't read, but I will be by the time we have our next episode. So I think the overall takeaway about Harry and Meghan, the meaning the docu series, not the couple, is that however you walked into that docu series, whether you walked into that docu series as a Harry and Meghan fan or you walked into that docu series as not a Harry and Meghan fan, I don't think that the docu series changed your mind. either way. And if you didn't care, if you're apathetic about the couple, I don't think you watched. You know what I mean? And so I
Hmm.
don't think that anybody walked out of that 6-part docu-series going, "Oh my gosh, I didn't like them and now I do," or "I
Right.
loved them and now I don't." And so did it move the needle? I don't know. I mean, I don't think so. I'd love to hear from listeners if I mean, if it changed your opinion, although I seriously doubt that. The two things I'll say is, first of all, number one, it's so very obvious that Harry and Meghan are in love. And I mean, don't we all seek a love like that? So good for them. Number two, it's just all, I finished it, especially volume two, and it was just so very sad. Just how it just felt like it didn't have to be this way, and why did it all shake out like this? And then of course, seeing the queen a little bit in volume two made me sad, and I just left feel it was kind of a depressing watch, honestly. I think volume one for me was pretty boring. Volume two for me was pretty sad. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of where I'll leave my thoughts. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I agree with you. I think that's a great point.
Hmm.
It was kind of sad, and
It was.
I just hate that that was the feeling that came out of that.
Yeah, and just again, like I felt this way in the Oprah interview too. Why am I watching this family struggle? It felt voyeuristic, it felt icky a little bit, and it just felt invasive. Could I have chosen not to watch? I mean, I guess not. I mean, this is my work, so not really, but of course I was going to watch even if I didn't do this for a living, but um yeah, more to come on that. But I want to say that I read a piece, and I can't even remember where it was, but that there is a term called Sussex fatigue. And you've mentioned this on the show before about how there's a lot of Sussex content coming out right now. The Archetypes podcast, the docu-series, the book, the Anderson Cooper interview, the ITV interview. I'm sure there's things I'm forgetting. Megan's been on the cut and Variety. And so and then I've also heard, and this is I think a thing, it's going to be end up being a thing, because I didn't realize that with Penguin Random House, Harry and Meghan have signed a 4-book deal. Did you realize that?
I did not.
So the first book was The Bench, which was Meghan's children's book that came out in 2021.
Okay.
The second book is Spare. The third book is reportedly a wellness book that Harry and Meghan are working on together. So that sounds rather California, not to be stereotypical, but and then the fourth book is allegedly Meghan's memoir. So Meghan's going to have her own turn, which of course, like we can expect that, right? I mean, if Harry's going to have his turn to have a memoir, why wouldn't Meghan? So that will be fascinating as well. But Sussex fatigue, I mean, you've spoken about it, and I've said on here, well, we asked for this content and now it's all coming out, so we can't complain about it. But it does feel like a lot. It does. And then, so by the way, wasn't expecting this, but Harry and Meghan also released another Netflix project, Live to Lead, which came out on New Year's Eve. And I actually had the chance to watch it. We're recording this on January 3rd. So it's not very long. There's 7 parts. They're about 25, 27 minutes a piece. Lots of really great people on there: Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Brian Stevenson, some other people, and I actually really liked it. I found it really good. Like, this is the kind of, like, Live to Lead is the kind of Sussex content that I want, because it's not all about them. It's interesting, it's engaging, it moves the needle forward for me. Of course, as we've said, we're just days away at this point from Spare coming out. That comes out January 10th. And as you mentioned a minute ago, he is only doing 2 interviews for this, and they're both on January 8th, which is on Sunday, to promote the book. ITV's Tom Bradby, which listeners, you might remember him. Tom Bradby is the journalist that interviewed Harry and Meghan when they were on their royal tour of Africa in 2019, the one that asked Meghan, "Are you okay?" famously. And then CNN's Anderson Cooper, the interview actually will not be on CNN. It will be on CBS's 60 Minutes on Sunday. So are you going to watch those interviews, and are you going to read Spare?
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, we'll talk about it here. So I'll watch and I'll read, and just like I did the docu-series, and I know you
Mhm.
will too. So we'll see, what comes out of that. But I agree with you on everything you've said. I really do think overall, the public was supportive of their love story and of the two of them together. And I think everybody liked seeing them together when they announced their relationship and when they got married. And I feel like this step away from the family could have been handled so much better, and they could have used their platform to, shine a light on the issues that they care about, like you talked about, other series that kind of focus on I don't know, different things that they want to shine a light on. And I'm struggling to really understand, given they spent so little time as working royals, why we're spending so much effort, what what feels like just causing hurt within the family. I don't understand that piece of it. That does not make sense to me. So we'll see, what comes out in the future with their additional books and if they have anything else with Netflix. But yeah, I agree with what you said.
Yeah. And obviously I will be watching and I will be reading. So, I mean, that goes without saying. So let's jump back to Christmas. So Harry and Meghan stayed in the US, but the rest of the royal family went to Sandringham for Christmas. We saw them all on the traditional Christmas morning walk to St. Mary Magdalene Church for services. It was Louis's debut, and as usual, he stole the show. I think I wrote probably 4 or 5 different articles about Louis at the Christmas walk alone. I mean, just obsessed with this child. Love him. Kate wore a pair of earrings that were apparently a Christmas gift from William, which I think is adorable. The royals opened their Christmas gifts on Christmas Eve, so she would have had them all ready for Christmas morning. And the Christmas walk was the first since 2019 because of the pandemic. And of course, we didn't have Her Late Majesty there. So it felt different, but it was so good to see them on the walk again. So were you glad to see it back?
Yes, of course. I love this tradition. It's such a happy, fun moment to see them out on Christmas morning together as a family. So I was really happy. And I wanted to ask you, what did you think about Kate's outfit?
Yeah, it was pretty bold, wasn't it? I mean, I'm just, maybe this is the American in me. I'm not a huge hat person. I thought that first of all, I love the Alexander McQueen coat. I love the color. The hat was bold. It had a feather in it. I liked it. It felt like she was pushing the envelope a little bit. I liked it. What did you think?
Yeah, it was interesting. I kind of felt like it was a little bit unpredictable for her for a Christmas morning look. I mean, I did expect
Mhm.
her to have a hat, but the whole look in general with the feather and the green and kind of the brown tones, not really what I was expecting to see on Christmas morning. But at the same time, it kind of um felt a little British to me. And it felt like maybe what we might see her in going to church if she was like off the clock on family time, like
Mhm.
not in the public. Like it was still a great look. And it was just a little bit different than what we normally see. So I
Yeah.
liked it. I thought it was fun.
Yeah, I liked it too. That's a good way to put it. It was a little bit different than what we'd seen before, but that doesn't mean that it's bad. I liked it. I like going outside of the box a little bit sometimes.
So, okay, moving on from that, what did you think of the King's speech?
So every Christmas morning, as listeners, longtime listeners know, my mom is a royal family fan as well. She's the one that got me into all this. So thanks, Mom. Hi, Mom. I know you're listening. And so every Christmas morning at 9 a.m. Central Time, which is our time zone, for my entire life, we've watched what was the Queen's speech, right? Because it's 3 p.m. London time or UK time. Now, of course, it's the King's speech. And I'm going to be honest with you. So it's about 9 minutes long or something like that. I do remember that the Prince and Princess of Wales got a shout out.
Yeah.
I think essential workers got a shout out. I don't remember everything that Charles said, but as that old quote says, you might not remember what someone says, but you remember how it made you feel. And it made me feel really seen and heard because he talked, of course, about grieving, which of course he is, the loss of his mother. And 2022 was a year of grief for me as well. I honestly, I don't remember if, I think I mentioned it on the show that we lost a really close family member this year unexpectedly, and so I thought he did a great job. I mean, I think it's been amazing, hasn't it, that Charles has really done such a great job and has not only done such a great job, but he's been received so well. I mean, all of it since September 8th, with, as far as he's concerned, has exceeded my expectations. And the King's speech is no different. What did you think?
Yeah, I agree. I watched it as well, and I really liked the video that, kind of supplemented his speech, and I
Hmm.
just enjoyed seeing the him in it was St. George's Chapel, right, that he was in.
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
was beautiful, and I really liked him referencing his trip to Bethlehem. I thought
Yeah,
that
I
was
love
really
that.
cool as well.
Mhm.
So I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good speech.
Yeah, that's on my bucket list too, is that trip to Bethlehem and seeing where everything happened in the Bible come to life. Yeah, I thought it was really good. I was very impressed. It's been, I don't know what we expected. I mean, if we just thought, someone can have a 73.5 year apprenticeship and then bomb out in the job, but he's doing great. And so go Charles. So I'm impressed.
Well, we also saw the Prince and Princess of Wales released for Christmas a reindeer watercolor painting George made. What were your thoughts about that one, Rachel?
Okay, the little guy is very talented. There's something, and it's a great painting. But there, it is. He at 9 years old did ran leaps and bounds around 36-year-old me as far as artistic, and he takes after his actually after his grandfather Charles, who paints, and his mom is artistic as well. She draws. I paint too, but I don't paint that well. I just paint for like it's calming and relaxing to me, but there's something about that reindeer that looks really sassy. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Like the reindeer has this, I don't know if you want to call it expression on it. I mean, he's very talented. I'm not knocking a 9-year-old kid's painting, but there's it's good. It's just the reindeer has a little expression that makes me makes me think like, okay, girl, like or something like that. I don't know how to explain it. But it's good. It's good. What did you think?
I thought it was precious, and I loved that they decided to share that too. I thought that was a really sweet moment. I loved the
Mm.
little pile of snowflakes on his nose and the little bird
Yes.
on his antler, and I
Mhm.
thought it was precious. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, and those are obviously proud parents, right? And so,
What a
no,
what a
it's great.
great like little piece to share with everybody at Christmas, right? Like
Yeah,
everybody wants something to make you smile at Christmas
yeah.
and fill your heart with joy, and I thought that was the perfect way to do it.
No, he definitely like I said, he's 1/4, 25% of my age, and he did better than I ever could. So he did a great job. So at Christmas Day church, we did not see Anne. Where was Anne? People were asking. Was down with a cold. She was sick. But once again, the Princess Royal was named the year's hardest working royal. She was the 2022 hardest working royal. This is not new. This is nothing new, no new news as far as this goes. She undertook 214, that's a lot of engagements, 214 engagements last year. Charles came in second place with 181, so Anne beat him pretty handedly. Edward and Sophie came in third and fourth place with 143 and 138 engagements respectively. William rounded out the top five with 126 engagements. Camilla was in sixth with 102 engagements. Look at the difference between number one at 214 and number five with 126. And then Kate finished ninth with 90 engagements. That seems low. I feel like she does more than 90 engagements, but whatever. I'm not going to doubt the science here. But so Anne is our hardest working royal again. So congratulations to the Princess Royal.
Wow, yeah, she is. I mean, her work ethic is incredible. She's
Crazy.
very much like her mom.
Yes, she is definitely the backbone of this family.
So we also learned over the break that Trooping the Color will be June 17th. So mark your calendars. The King is also starring on the 2023 Royal Mint to commemorate his 75th birthday next year. And we also caught a glimpse of the new banknotes with Charles' face on them for the first time. So these banknotes will enter circulation in mid 2024. And they are unchanged from the banknotes featuring Her Late Majesty, except for Charles' image will be on there instead of hers.
Yes, and the king also released his first ever New Year's honors list, honoring over 1,100 individuals, including Queen guitarist Brian May and Jason Knopf, who is the former advisor to the Prince and Princess of Wales and also had of course, a hand in those bullying allegations with Megan, so that was a little bit controversial. But um, so congratulations to all of those who made the King's first episode. So many firsts, and we'll just continue to have more and more of those as his first year goes on. But as we close the royal rundown, and we have just such a super brief royals around the world, but the bulk of our episode, I guess, will be our top 10 royal moments of the year. And we're not going to go incredibly deep into this because everybody listening remembers these moments. But I would just love to know, first of all, what were your overall impressions of 2022 in terms of the royal family?
Wow, that's a big question. I mean, oh my gosh, it was a packed year. I mean, there were some highs and there were some really, really low, sad moments.
Yeah.
There was a lot of mourning. But then, again, there were some great memories that, a lot happened this year. And I'm trying to not say too much because I know we're going to dig into our top moments, but I think I have to imagine if I came out of 2022 just looking for a break at the end of the year, the Royals too probably, and I hope they've taken some time these last few weeks to just really unplug as well and chill
Mhm.
out because it was a big year for everyone in the royal family.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the platinum jubilee would have been enough, right? But then
Right.
her late majesty dying just 3 months later was it was a big year. So I don't know. So in the past we've gone back and forth. I think we should do that again.
Okay.
And so do you want to do your so we're gonna go from 10 down to one. And for me anyway, um they're ranked like number 10 is the least important of the importance, and then number one is like the biggest moment for me. I don't
And
know.
I'll go and we always say this every year too, but for new listeners, this is our top 10 just based on our personal experience in following the royal family. So
Mhm.
they're not going to be the top 10 that you see in, articles online or whatever.
Oh
This is
no, this
just
is our
personal to me and Rachel. So we may say something that you're like, what? I don't remember that. Well, it was what stuck out to us. So
and
why don't you?
it doesn't mean that we like it either. It doesn't mean that
No, no, no. Right. It's just memorable.
yeah, it's just yeah, the most memorable. It doesn't like like obviously I haven't looked at your list yet, but the Queen's death will be on your list. There's no way it can't be. That doesn't mean we like it. It doesn't mean like, oh yes, awesome, this happened. So it's just our most memorable. We should probably reword it to be our most memorable, not our top. But this is our third year doing this, by the way. 2020, 2021, twenty twenty
Wow.
two. That's pretty crazy. So okay, did you say you wanted me to go first
Yeah. Why
with
don't
my
you
top
start off?
10? Okay, well, so like Jessica just said, you're not going to see my number 10 in any magazine list because it's not going to be on Jessica's list either because it's personal to me. So my number 10 royal moment of the year was my interview with Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York, for Marie Claire. I got to talk to her on well, it was on audio Zoom. So I don't know if you call that the phone or what, but we spoke for I had her for 30 minutes. We went over and I apologize for that, and she was so gracious. She said don't worry about that at all. She it was honestly not just one of my favorite interviews I had in 2022. It was one of my favorite interviews I've ever had. I found her to be absolutely lovely. There were definitely children in the background running around. I'm pretty sure that it was August in the background, and he fell down, and she as a concerned grandmother like ran after him, like she stopped the interview for a minute and ran after him. And I found that to be like so precious, like just me sitting here in Birmingham, Alabama in my bedroom and hearing on audio Zoom the Duchess of York running after Princess Eugenie's child. I mean, just like that's just one of those moments where you're like, is this real life? But I truly was so moved by what she said. And if you want to hear what she said, you can read the article. But that's my number 10. I mean, it's not every day or certainly even every year that you get to talk to a member of the royal family. And so I had to include that on there, even though I know that won't be on your list or anybody else's list. So that's my number 10.
Well, I'm honestly surprised that was all the way down at number 10. That's a
Yeah,
pretty
but
good
a lot
jump.
happened this year.
It did.
A lot of stuff happened.
So my number 10 is, of course, Catherine's 40th birthday. That happened at the top of the year. And, we never saw any kind of big party or celebration for that, but it was a milestone birthday. And we did get surprised with some new royal portraits of hers.
Mhm.
So that was really fun. And yeah, it definitely fit into my 10 list.
Well, this is going to happen more than once, I'm sure, but that is my number nine. So I'm going to concede it over to you to share your number nine.
Okay, so my number 9 was the Cambridges touring the Caribbean. So I know there was a lot of buzz about that in the news when that tour took place before and after. They got a lot of criticism, but we also had some really great moments. And I mean, look, you can call me shallow for loving the fashion, but Kate had some
That's what
great
we live
dresses on
for.
that trip.
Yes, we live for it.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. That one's my number 9. So I don't know. Did you have any thoughts on that one? Any comments?
Well, that's my number five. So I had it a little bit higher up. I think, from a sartorial perspective, from a fashion perspective, it was wonderful. From a broader perspective, it was very controversial. And you can go back in March or whenever it was, I think it was in March, to hear our thoughts on that. It was very controversial, but sometimes I think in life, our mistakes propel us forward as people and as leaders. And I think that William and Kate needed to, I wouldn't call it a fall on their face moment. I mean, it wasn't a complete loss, but it was not great, if listeners remember. And I think that needed to happen. I think those mistakes needed to happen because I mean, at the time in March, they never would have known that they would be Prince and Princess of Wales by the end of the year within 6 months. They did, which is, now William is second in line to the throne. They needed that tour to refine them, I think, and to propel them forward. And I think what we saw come out of that tour were mistakes, yes, but also we saw an unprecedented statement by William at the end of the tour. And I think, because I was at the US tour, and so I saw kind of the results of how they're doing things differently now after the Caribbean tour. And by the way, I went on tour with them for 3 days in one city. I can't imagine how exhausted a royal reporter would be going on 8 days in three countries. I mean, my stamina, my muscle is not flexed that much yet. That's a lot of work. So bravo to all royal reporters. But yes, the Caribbean tour, we can't leave that off. That was a monumental moment. And honestly, another thing, I don't think we're going to see now. Charles and Camilla are going to go on a huge tour in 2023. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I don't think we're going to see William and Kate take a long tour like that to multiple countries, possibly ever again. So I think that actually will end up being kind of a dying era for them. I think that it will be more like Kate's tour to Denmark in February, 2 days, solo, quick. I don't think we're going to, or like William and Kate in Boston, 3 days, quick. I don't think we're going to see a tour like that, maybe for a long time from them. So that's my number five.
Wow.
Okay, so
Okay.
is it my turn now to do my number
Yes.
eight?
Yes.
Okay. So my number eight is when William, Kate, and the kids moved to Windsor. So I thought that this was huge because it really shows me where their priorities lie as parents. So they moved out of the city. They wanted to give their kids a more country life, and the timing. This move really got overshadowed because they moved the first weekend in September, and then their kids started at Lambrook on September 8th, which was actually also the day that Her Late Majesty died. So this move really kind of got brushed under the rug, but I think that it's really important in terms of how William and Kate, yes, are definitely prioritizing their royal roles, but they're also really prioritizing their role as parents too. And they're looking out for these kids and they're taking them out of the fishbowl of KP and of London. And so I thought that deserved mention on my list. So that is my number eight.
Well, that was my number 8 as well. So we had
How
the
about
same
that?
one. Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah. And I know we talked about it when we were first starting to hear, we were like, we don't want to start any rumors. It hasn't been confirmed, but they're looking at Adelaide Cottage and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and so then it did happen. So yeah, that was my number 8. So do I go to number 7 now or do you?
You can go for it.
Okay. So my number seven is Earthshot in Boston. And I know this is on your list, and I know you have much more of a firsthand experience with this than I do. So I'll let you really talk about a lot of the details. Of course, it was on my list because the last time we saw Catherine and William in the United States has been quite a long time ago. When was
2014. So it had
2014? Yeah.
been 8 years.
Yeah, and so that was a huge deal. I thought they did, from my perspective, from what I saw, that I thought they did a really great job. Really enjoyed watching the awards with their green carpet, and it was just really, I thought it was a great event. So I'll let you share your side of that.
Well, if listeners, if you want to hear my side of that, you can go to episode 80, which is the episode that precedes this. And I wax on and on and on and on about Boston. I won't do that now, but just the fact that I was there and got to see them in person, I mean, I'll never get over that. And that's my number four, which shows what kind of year this was when that is my number four.
Yeah, really.
Just, I mean, what an incredible experience. Now that they planned this trip when they were still the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, now that they're the Prince and Princess of Wales and their focus is so much on the UK and the Commonwealth, I don't know the next time they'll be back in the US. So I'm so glad that I got to see them when they were there. And like I said, that is my number four. So backing up to my number seven, I put the return to quote unquote normalcy with normal royal events in the diary. So, example being what we just talked about with the Sandringham Christmas walk. We haven't done that since 2019. And, that's a long time. I mean, that's 3 years. And so having Royal Ascot again, having Order of the Garter again, just like the staples in having Trooping the Color again, the staples in the Royal Diary that we didn't get in 2020. We did not get in 2021. Just, I mean, COVID, I don't know, are we calling COVID over now? COVID will never end. COVID is a part of our life now, but it's not as isolating as it once was. And so returning to normalcy with just some normal royal staples that we look forward to every year, that's my number seven.
Well, and I think that's part of what made 2022 such a big year. When you asked my initial takeaway, it was like, oh my gosh, there's just so much, because not only did we have the return to normal events after 2 years off, we brought all this back on the calendar. On top of that, there were these huge events that would take place that we couldn't have predicted. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's a great number seven. So I'll go and do my number six. My number six is just everything with the Sussexes, from, the docuseries to the talk of Harry's book to multiple magazine interviews. I mean, you can't avoid the fact that this was a big focus with
Mhm.
alongside the royal family this year. There was a lot of chatter about this, and we've reported on it quite a lot, and we followed along with it too. So it definitely stuck out in my mind.
Yeah, and that is actually my number six as well. So, I mean, you said it, the docuseries, Spare, Archetypes, Invictus Games. We can't forget about the Invictus Games. That was a moment
Yeah.
when that was happening back in April. So, yeah, I would say Harry, I'm just calling that Harry and Meghan's projects. We didn't see much of after their step back in January of 2020. We really didn't see much of them at all in 2020 or 2021 for that matter. So, it's nice to have them out front again and to be able to report on their work. And so many people said for so many years, well, what are they doing? With these big Netflix and Spotify deals, where's the product? Well, here's the product. It's all coming out right now. So that is my number six.
So my number five, and I'm getting a little into the details here, but these are just I bunched them both into number five because they're kind of from the same event and they both stuck out to me. But Prince Louis at the Platinum Jubilee and all of
Yes,
his funny facial
precious.
expressions, and I mean that was just I had a great laugh at all of that. And then also the Paddington Bear skit with Queen
Yes.
Elizabeth. I mean, that has just really like stuck in my mind throughout this whole year. I thought that was such a sweet moment and just really
Mhm.
kind of brought everyone together. Everyone loved it. It was a feel good moment. And it was, some of the last times we got to see her
And that's so
interacting.
kind
And
of emotional. Oh,
yeah,
I
it is. So
sucks. Hmm.
yeah, that was my five.
Well, so we've already said my five and my four. So jumping down to number three, you and I are clearly on the same wavelength here. My number three is the Platinum Jubilee. And we can't obviously not, of course, mention the Platinum Jubilee because it will probably never happen again, at least in our lifetimes, that we'll have a monarch on the throne for 70 years, barring catastrophe. And just, I mean, just everything, I think it would have been special even if we hadn't had COVID, but really June was, yeah, everybody's coming out of COVID. We've got Trooping the Color back for the first time in 3 years. We've got the pageant, we've got the concert, we've got the service of Thanksgiving, just so much packed into those 4 days. And I got to cover it. So I was dialed in the whole time. And I mean, we had no idea in June that we were going to lose her so soon after. And it was special anyway. And now in hindsight, it's even more special that we got that time. And I truly think, the queen being who the queen was, she was in such frail health in the last year of her life, but she stuck it out for us. And like, God, like I don't want to be like that episode where I just freaking bawled the whole time. So I'm going to stop myself. But I just want to say again, thank you, ma'am, for everything because she gave us that moment. She gave us the Platinum Jubilee. Thank you for that.
Mhm. Yeah, and my number four is, it's similar to your experience with your number 10. It's going to be very unique to me and you as well, I guess. But um, reporting on Cheddar News during the
Yeah.
Queen's funeral and following her death, that was certainly not something that we planned to happen. It was really quick and it was something we had to do kind of live and on the spot. And it was a new experience for me, something I had not done
Mhm.
before. And then really just like an incredibly historical moment to be a part of.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
I mean, it just really has. I don't know. It was a point in 2022 for me that really sticks out, because it was. I don't. I mean, it was an honor to be able to be there and share memories of Her Majesty following her death like that. So yeah,
Absolutely.
big,
Yeah,
big,
and
big
that,
number on the list.
I've done some TV spots before, but never with you. And I've said it then and I'll say it again. I much prefer it with you. I would rather have you there for every single one because, that was such a tough day and just having you there, that was really special. I mean, it was a horrible,
Mhm.
wish it were under happier circumstances, but that was special. And so okay, do you want to do your number three? Because I'm already on my number two. So you go ahead with
Okay.
your number three.
Yeah, so my number three is just following Prince Charles taking over as king. We've set it up, many times before. He's done really well. And I know he's been in training for a while, but still, it's a hard transition. I mean,
Yeah.
not only has his country lost their monarch, he's lost his mother, and it would be difficult for anyone. And so, I think it's been really interesting to see him kind of take on that role.
Yeah, and that's my number two is just the mini first for King Charles, his first King's speech, his first speech on September 9th. Just, all of his first state dinner, his first diplomatic corps reception, just all of the firsts, which we will continue to have through the next year. And again, just how well it's gone. I've always found it so cruel that the job in his case he's been training for 73 almost 74 years hinges on his mother's death,
Mhm.
but he's really exceeded my expectations, so that is my number two. And I mean there's obviously no doubt what my number one is, so what's your number two? And then I'm positive we have the same number one.
Yeah, my number two is the Cambridges becoming Waleses. So I
That's
put
good.
this pretty high on the list, and I wasn't exactly sure where to put it. And I landed here because it was such a big moment. It was done pretty quickly. And I mean, everybody has always thought of the Princess of Wales as Princess Diana. And
Yeah.
so, we really didn't know, what that would be like. But I think they've stepped into this role really well.
Mhm.
I think Kate makes a wonderful Princess of Wales. And again, it was a big moment. And I think too, like it's caught on. Like I haven't had any problems switching from the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge to the Prince and Princess of Wales. So
I
it's
wobbled a couple times, but for the most
yeah,
part.
well, but yeah, so they stepped into that role really well, and that was my number two.
Well, and also I just thought of this. We mentioned Kate's 40th birthday, but we didn't mention that it was William's 40th birthday too. So we clearly just anyway, but yes, they're doing a great job as Prince and Princess of Wales. And I mean, just obviously will continue to. So I mean, no spoiler alert here. And again, remember listeners that our top moment doesn't mean it's because we like it. We hate it actually. But I mean, I think this is your number one too. We can't not have it be the queen's death and her funeral and all the the pageantry around that as well. I've never seen anything like it. And I mean, she passed away on the 8th and her funeral was the 19th, and it was just wall to wall that pretty much that whole time. And um I'm sure in our lifetime, unfortunately, we'll see the death of another monarch, but not one that's reigned for 70 years in our entire lifetimes. And just not only is it a big deal to us as royal correspondents, but it's a moment in history. And um, if you want to hear how we felt about that, you can go back and hear me blubber and cry. But that is my number one. Um, you just really can't. I mean, it's just such a part of history that you can't put it at number one.
Yeah.
Can't, excuse me, can't not put it at number one.
Right. Yeah. And there are some moments from that period that just really are kind of stuck in my mind. Seeing her coffin travel around the UK, the way they had
Mhm.
that glass top on the car and you could see that. I mean, that's just really stuck in my mind. And then again, the thousands and thousands of people that queued up to see her lying in state. I mean, that just
Mhm.
really shows how loved she was.
Yeah,
And those are kind of the moments from that period that have really stuck with me and that I've remembered. So,
absolutely. Well, we're in 2023 now, barely. It's January 3rd as we record this. So, what are you most looking forward to in 2023? Is it Charles's coronation in May? Is it he and Camilla's world tour, which is expected to be the largest in royal history? What are you most looking forward to this year?
well, I think we've got a lot to look forward to, but I'm gonna start by saying first off will be the coronation. I mean, obviously that's something that we've never actually seen in real life. We've seen videos, but it'll be interesting to see how they do it. What's changed, what's different from last time, and just to see another, again, a historical moment. I think that's what I'm looking forward to. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with that. I think there's going to be a lot of things that happen in 2023 that we can't predict, that either we don't know about or no one knows about. But I think from what we do know about, it's hard to argue with the coronation. It's just, again, it's all a part of history. And, people hundreds of years from now will look back on these times and the early days of Charles's reign. And of course, Camilla will be crowned right alongside him, which still weirds me out a little bit, but I'll hopefully get over that by May. And just I mean, yeah, I think, it's gonna be a big year. I don't know if it'll be as big as 2022, but in its own way, 2023 is set up to be a big year as well. So that's what we got. So there's our top 10 lists, 3rd annual. That's
Wow.
wild.
Well, wrapping everything up with a quick royals around the world. So, we announced in an earlier episode that Princess Alexandra of Luxembourg would be getting married this year, and we now know when. So, their civil wedding will be April 22nd, and their religious ceremony will be April 29th, which coincidentally is the same day as William and Kate's 12th wedding anniversary. She is marrying Nicholas Baggery in the first Luxembourg royal wedding since 2013. So, a lot to look forward to with that royal family as well. I'm sure they're going to be in huge celebration mode. I mean, that's what, 10 years since they've had a
Mhm.
royal wedding.
Yeah, and new listeners, I always point this out because I think this makes our podcast just I think it sets us apart and I really like it that we do a segment not every time, but we follow other royal families around the world as well, like Luxembourg, Sweden, Japan, just all Jordan, all over the world. And so obviously our primary focus is the British royal family, but we Monaco, I mean, just all kinds of European royal families as well. So I like that part about our show, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Me too. Well, Rachel, anything else before we close it out?
No, welcome to 2023, everyone. Let's see what happens.
Happy New Year. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Podcast Royal. Email us at hellopodcastroyal@gmail.com. And please follow, rate, and review our podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in to episode 81 of Podcast Royal. Bye.
Bye.